Franklin asked the housekeeper's daughter to join him for a casual game. After 12 moves, he understood she wasn't simply participating, she was strategizing. The day began with rainfall. Not ordinary precipitation, but the type that drums against glass panes, as if conveying a message. The variety that makes time crawl. That particular afternoon in Westport, Connecticut, water cascaded from the sky. Franklin Maddox occupied the conservatory of his vast mansion, clutching a mug of neglected coffee that had grown tepid. The chessboard before him had captured his attention for some time, the identical match he'd initiated against himself 3 days prior. Identical strategies, identical stagnant quietude. His restlessness ran deeper than the sort remedied by literature or sleep. This boredom penetrated his core, the kind that emerges when abundance surrounds you, yet companionship eludes you. Denise, his domestic help, had recently completed polishing the corridor mirrors when he glanced up and asked impulsively, "Denise, is your daughter present today?" Denise pivoted, startled. "Indeed, Mr. Maddox, she's completing assignments in the kitchen." Franklin paused. "Might she enjoy a chess match?" Denise's eyes widened. "Chess," he confirmed with a nod. "Simply for entertainment." A lengthy silence followed. Though Denise maintained old-fashioned respect and caution, her expression showed slight skepticism. "She's merely 11, sir." "I understand," Franklin replied, placing his cup aside. "It's merely a game." Imani Covington wasn't the type of child who created disturbances in others' homes. Her mother had instilled better manners. Speak only when addressed. Maintain proper posture. Avoid touching others' belongings. Yet now her mother guided her toward the heavy oak entrance to Mr. Maddox's office. "Mind your manners," Denise murmured, smoothing a crease in Imani's sweatshirt. "Don't feel obligated to complete the match." Imani simply nodded. She rarely spoke much. Words always seemed to flow incorrectly, either too rapidly or too slowly. However, her gaze remained keen, constantly observing and absorbing. She entered the chamber. Franklin had already positioned himself at the chessboard. Flames crackled in the fireplace behind him. Volumes filled the walls completely. A substantial portrait of a woman in emerald attire hung askew above him. "Imani," he greeted with a gentle smile. "I'm pleased you joined me." She offered a courteous nod, uncertain where to place her hands. "Have you played before?" he inquired, gesturing toward the board. She studied it momentarily. "Occasionally." His eyebrows rose. "Do you recall the piece movements?" "I do." "Would you care to attempt it?" Imani settled slowly opposite him. Her feet barely reached the floor. She adjusted her sweatshirt sleeves, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. "Light or dark pieces?" Franklin asked. "Dark?" He felt mildly surprised. Most players preferred the opening advantage. He initiated with the standard move, pawn to king's fourth square. Imani observed the board, then responded swiftly with the Sicilian defense. Franklin grinned, an unexpected choice for an 11-year-old. "You've been studying," he noted. She remained silent, focusing on the board. Franklin leaned closer, his interest now piqued. He advanced another piece. She countered immediately. Minutes passed as their moves accelerated. Her eyes scanned the board as if reading familiar text. Franklin hesitated. He now played seriously, not from any desire to embarrass her, but because her skill demanded it. Denise lingered outside the door, uncertain whether to interrupt or withdraw. She hadn't witnessed Imani smile at Franklin's invitation, but neither had she declined. That held significance. Inside, Franklin shifted in his seat. The girl facing him surpassed beginner level. She anticipated his moves by 3 steps. He found himself reaching for pieces, then reconsidering. "You've studied extensively," he observed. Imani finally looked up. Some online research at the library. No formal instruction. She shook her head. Just practice. Franklin's expression shifted between a frown and a smirk. He was losing. In fact, he had already lost, though he hadn't yet recognized where. More troubling, a question he hadn't considered in years began nagging at him. What opportunities have I overlooked? But this marked only the beginning. What followed would demolish every assumption Franklin had ever held. Franklin reclined in his chair, arms crossed, studying the chessboard as if it had deceived him. His queen had vanished. His knight was trapped. His bishop lacked escape routes. Across the table, Imani sat calmly, neither arrogant nor pleased, simply concentrated, as if this presented no challenge, as if defeating a Harvard-educated man with a U.S. Junior Chess Championship trophy came naturally. Franklin cleared his throat. Your play demonstrates exceptional skill. Imani shrugged. I appreciate the patterns. He tilted his head. Patterns? She indicated the board. It resembles mathematics combined with narratives. Each move reveals the player's character, their fears, greed, impulsiveness. Franklin stared at her extensively. Such insight couldn't be gleaned from online videos. This was wisdom. This was giftedness. He attempted one final move, a desperate effort to ensnare her rook. Imani barely glanced before advancing her pawn. She promoted it to a queen without hesitation. Franklin pushed back his chair. You've won. Imani looked up, questioning his sincerity. Is that all? She asked. He smiled genuinely. That's all. She straightened. May we play again? Franklin was taken aback. They reset the board. This time Franklin opened differently, less aggressively, more strategically. Imani again chose the dark pieces, maintaining her calm demeanor. As they played, his curiosity extended beyond her skill to her as a person. Her mother had worked in his home for years, yet Franklin had never engaged Imani beyond polite greetings. Now their vastly different worlds intersected over 64 squares. He decided to inquire, Do you play at school? Imani's fingers paused over her knight. There's no club, I asked, but they eliminated it. Eliminated? She nodded. Budget constraints. Franklin sighed. Naturally. He made a sharper move. She immediately recognized and blocked it. What about tournaments? He asked. Imani shrugged. They're expensive, and my mother works extensively. It's difficult. Franklin hesitated. That familiar bitter taste returned. Guilt. The kind he'd learned to suppress amid his marble kitchen and leather furniture. He'd never needed to consider such matters. Cost, access, time. As a child, he'd had tutors, coaches, private matches. His father made calls, doors opened. Imani was unlocking them herself. The second game concluded even faster. Franklin attempted an early trap. She evaded it. He opened the center. She squeezed him out. He shifted defensively. She dominated the board. By move 28, it was finished. He laughed, not bitterly, but in disbelief. You surpass good. You're extraordinary. Imani appeared uncertain how to respond. She reached for the pieces, already resetting the board. Wait, he said. Let's pause. She stopped mid-motion. Franklin rose and walked to the large window overlooking the backyard. The rain had diminished to a drizzle. Somewhere distant, a train whistle sounded. He turned around. Has anyone ever told you you're brilliant? She looked at her lap. My mother says I'm intelligent. I'm not discussing intelligence, Franklin said. I'm discussing giftedness. 1 in 1,000 brilliance. Imani remained quiet. Do you play online? He asked. I use the free application on my mother's phone, but it disconnects if I take too long. Franklin sat back down more slowly, the kind of deliberate movement that accompanies complete reevaluation. Imani looked up. "May I ask you something?" "Certainly." "Why did you invite me to play?" He paused. There it was. He considered lying, claiming he wanted company or that he'd noticed her reading and thought she might be interested. But he didn't. He told the truth. "I was bored," he said, "and I didn't anticipate much. I apologize for that." She nodded once. "It's acceptable. Most people don't." That struck him harder than expected. Franklin didn't know yet this wasn't merely about chess anymore. It concerned everything he'd chosen to ignore. Franklin couldn't sleep that night. It wasn't the rain or wind rattling the gutters or his usual insomnia from occupying a house too large for one person. It was that 11-year-old girl, quiet, serious, methodical, moving across the chessboard as if born with the game embedded in her mind. Around midnight, he retrieved his laptop, sat in his study with the fire long extinguished. He opened a blank document and typed, "Imani Covington Chess Prodigy." Then he deleted it. It sounded absurd, but still he needed to know. He began researching, not about her specifically, but about chess, child geniuses, grandmasters under 12, tactics, patterns, analytics. He examined online matches, reviewed playbacks and videos, then opened a chess engine, recreated their second match exactly, and ran the analysis. The computer rated her play at nearly expert level. He blinked, double-checked, ran it again. Same result. 11 years old, no coach, no formal training, yet playing like someone twice her age with both. The following morning, Franklin waited in the kitchen when Denise arrived. She startled slightly. "Mr. Maddox, is everything all right? Is Imani with you?" Denise looked cautious. "Yes, she's doing schoolwork in the car." He nodded. "I'd like to speak with both of you, when convenient." Denise's face tightened. "Did she do something wrong?" "Not at all, please." An hour later, the three sat at the long dining table. Franklin hadn't used that room for guests in years. Dust clung to the table runner's corners. The chandelier flickered as if uncertain about being illuminated in daylight. Imani looked uncomfortable, her fingers tapping quietly beneath the table. Franklin cleared his throat. "I reviewed our second game last night." Imani blinked. "You recorded it?" He shook his head. "No, I remembered the moves. I entered them into a computer that analyzes playing strength." Denise looked confused. "You mean how well someone plays?" "Yes." He turned to Imani. "The computer believes you play like someone in the 95th percentile of all online players. Not just your age, everyone." Imani's mouth opened slightly without sound. Franklin continued, "That's not normal, Imani. That's exceptional. Most people don't understand these patterns until their late teens, possibly longer." Denise leaned back, arms folded. "I didn't realize that," Imani said quietly. Franklin smiled. "I believe you." He turned to Denise. "Has anyone ever evaluated her?" Denise's eyes narrowed. "Evaluated? I mean for gifted programs, IQ testing, talent development." Denise interrupted. "We had her tested once at 6. They said she was bright. Nothing more, nothing special." Imani looked down. "They missed it," Franklin said softly. "I don't need testing," Imani said suddenly, her voice stronger. "I just want to play." Franklin leaned forward. "You could do more than play. You could compete, be ranked." Denise raised her hand. "Mr. Maddox, respectfully, we can't afford any of that. Tournaments, travel, coaching. We've investigated. It's expensive." "I know," he said. "I also know it doesn't have to be impossible." Imani looked up. "Why do you care?" Franklin took a breath. "Because when I was your age, someone opened a door for me, a stranger who owed me nothing. That changed everything." The room fell silent. "I'm not asking to change your life," he added. but I'd like to offer some lessons, help you train if that's something you'd want. Denise shifted in her chair. With all due respect, this isn't charity. Franklin's gaze didn't waver. No, it's recognition. They agreed to let Imani return that weekend for one session. Just one. No promises, no commitments. She arrived wearing sneakers, a backpack, and carrying 3 chess books. One was missing its cover. She'd renewed it from the library 6 times consecutively to keep it longer. Franklin cleared space in the study, brought out a wooden clock, printed puzzles, set up a laptop. What he witnessed over the next 2 hours left him speechless. She wasn't just skilled. She absorbed information like a sponge. Positional strategy, endgame theory, gambits, everything he presented she caught, analyzed, and used better than he had at her age. She didn't need guidance, she needed access. But Franklin didn't realize that offering help would force him to confront aspects of himself he'd been ignoring for years. The following Saturday, Franklin left his estate for the first time in weeks. Not for a gallery board meeting or even his own charity events. He got in his black Lexus, told no one his destination, and drove across town to where Imani and her mother lived. The building was unremarkable. Weathered brick, 3 stories, an old screen door that squeaked excessively, the type of place you'd pass countless times without noticing. Denise had hesitated when he asked to visit. It's small, she'd warned, nothing like your place. But Franklin insisted. I'd like to understand more about Imani and where she studies. That matters. Imani opened the door herself. Hi, she said, stepping aside. Sorry it's somewhat messy. We cleaned, but it still looks like this. Franklin smiled. No problem at all. The living room was cramped. Just enough space for a couch, small table, and a shelf packed with old books and school folders. A second-hand laptop sat on the armrest with a cracked corner. Next to it was a box of broken chess pieces, some taped, some mismatched, some clearly from different sets. He looked at it and raised an eyebrow. You practice with those? Yeah, Imani said, sitting cross-legged on the floor. As long as the board's complete. It doesn't matter if the bishop's blue and the rook is wooden. Franklin didn't know how to respond. He looked around. The walls were covered with paper, hand-drawn chess puzzles, math worksheets, quotes written in pen. One read, "It's not about who you are, it's about what you see." Another, "Plan 5 moves ahead." Always. He recognized one quote, his own. He'd said it years ago in an interview after winning a major tech award. He hadn't thought about it since. Somehow Imani had found it and written it down. In the kitchen, Denise poured them each a glass of water. She didn't offer food. There wasn't much in the refrigerator, just some eggs, a bag of apples, and a loaf of bread. She handed Franklin the glass without comment. I want you to know, Franklin said. I respect what you've done for your daughter. Denise folded a dish towel, eyes still downcast. I didn't expect you to come here, she said. Most people wouldn't. Franklin leaned against the counter. I used to think hard work was the only ingredient for success. Just work hard and doors will open, but now I see that's not always true. Denise looked at him, not with anger, but with something heavier. You're right, sometimes we work twice as hard just to be seen. Franklin nodded. She should be seen. Later, in the cramped bedroom she shared with her mother, Imani showed Franklin her self-created training schedule. Monday, tactical puzzles. Tuesday, endgame drills. Wednesday, famous games analysis. No one instructed her to do this. She simply figured it made sense. I don't always understand what the grandmasters are doing, she said, flipping to a page full of chess notation. But I copy the moves, then try to guess why. Franklin watched her speak. This wasn't some cute hobby. This was obsession, purpose, a fire no one had lit for her. She'd struck the match herself. You know, he said, when I was your age, I thought success meant beating everyone else. Now I think it means helping someone else win, too. She didn't respond, but she looked up and held his gaze for 3 full seconds before returning to her notes. That night, back at his house, Franklin walked past his trophy shelf. Dozens of shiny plaques, framed articles, old newspaper clippings. They all looked small now, like echoes. He walked to his home office and pulled out an old email chain from a friend who ran a youth chess foundation in Providence. He started typing, subject, possible candidate, unusual case, brilliant potential. He didn't know what would come of it yet, but he knew what couldn't happen. Nothing. Because nothing meant Imani would keep playing with cracked pawns and uneven boards while the world ignored her. But the more Franklin tried to help, the more he'd be forced to confront how easily good intentions could crash into real-life barriers. Franklin stood before the fireplace, gripping a tumbler of ice water as if it contained answers. Outside, the sky was gray again, as if Connecticut had forgotten sunlight existed. He'd spent the previous week making phone calls, real ones, not assistants, not email threads. Him, Franklin Maddox, but the responses had been complicated. She's very young. Without any formal rating, it's hard to place her. We'd need verification. We're not sure where she'd fit in. He rubbed his jaw, annoyed but not surprised. He'd worked with enough systems to know they weren't built to catch those who slipped through, and Imani was slipping through with every passing day. Later that evening, during another training session at his home, he noticed something different in her play. She was distracted, slower, not worse, just off. He paused the game and set his queen down gently. "Everything okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, I'm just tired." "You sure?" Another nod. Franklin leaned forward. "Imani, you don't have to pretend." She looked down, then muttered, "We got a notice from the landlord. Rent's going up again. Mom said we might have to move farther out. She's looking for another job." Franklin's throat tightened. "Will that interfere with your school?" he asked. She nodded again, smaller this time. "And the library?" He stared at the board, every square suddenly feeling heavy. He wanted to fix it, throw money at it, pay their rent for a year, 2, 10. But he also knew what Denise had said before. This isn't charity. He had to do this right, carefully, with respect, not like some rich savior dropping in from his mansion. The next morning, Franklin called Denise directly. "I'd like to cover private coaching for Imani," he said plainly. She was quiet on the line. "That sounds expensive." "I'll handle it. It's not a gift. It's an investment in her future. I believe in her strongly." Denise didn't say no, but she didn't say yes either. "Let me think about it," she said. The week stretched on. Imani kept coming to lessons, but she was quieter now. Something in her had pulled back, not from the game, from him. Franklin felt it like a cold breeze through a cracked window, so he tried again, gently. "Can I ask you something?" She didn't look up from the board. "You always ask. Do you want this?" She looked up, eyes steady. "Want what?" "The training, the competition, the coaching, all of it." Imani took a breath. "I want to learn. I want to get better, but I don't want it if it makes my mom uncomfortable. She doesn't want people thinking we need saving." Franklin nodded slowly. "You don't?" She raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Because it feels like that sometimes." He sat back, eyes on her like she'd just made another brilliant move. "You're right," he said. "I've been treating this like a rescue mission. That's not what it should be." She leaned on her elbow. "Then what should it be?" "A partnership," he said. That weekend, Denise came to the estate unannounced. Franklin met her at the front gate himself. "I've been thinking," she said, "a lot, and I've been watching." He stayed quiet. She's never lit up for anything like she does with chess. Not school, not books, not even music. And I used to think if I could just keep her safe, that would be enough." Denise paused, voice tightening. "But now I see she wants more, and maybe she should have it." Franklin didn't speak right away. He knew how hard it was for her to say that, not because of pride, but because of protection. Her whole life had been built on protecting Imani from disappointment, rejection, false hope. "I've been careful," Denise continued, "my whole life. Careful with money, with time, with trust." "And now?" Franklin asked. She looked up. "Now I think maybe it's time to be bold." Franklin didn't waste a second. He called his contact in Providence again, this time with a more direct tone. "I want her enrolled in the spring invitational. I'll sponsor it myself if I have to." And this time they said yes. Imani was going to play, but with opportunity came pressure, and Franklin knew all too well what that pressure could do to someone so young. But what neither of them expected was how the world would respond when a quiet girl from a quiet building walked into a room full of pedigrees and prodigies. The spring invitational was held at Brown University. Long wooden tables lined the hall, each set with a chessboard, a digital clock, and stiff folding chairs that never got comfortable, no matter how important the event. Imani sat at board 14. She was the youngest in her section by at least 4 years, the only black girl in the entire row, and the only one wearing beat-up sneakers and a hoodie with a safety pin in the pocket. Franklin sat quietly in the back, wearing a charcoal suit and trying not to look like he'd arrived in a private car just to be there. From his seat, he watched her scan the room. No fidgeting, no phone, just eyes, calm and clear, taking everything in. When the official gave the signal, she reached for her clock, pressed it, and made her first move. E4. Her first match lasted 19 minutes. Win. Second match, 31. Win. Third was tougher. Her opponent played fast, aggressively, a 17-year-old with private coaching since age 8. But Imani stayed patient, forced a mistake, then converted. Win. The fourth match was a draw, a calculated one. She recognized the stalemate 6 moves out and played for position instead of glory. Franklin smiled. Smart girl? By the day's end, she'd gone undefeated. 3 wins, 1 draw. People were starting to whisper, who was she? Where did she come from? Who's backing her? A few approached Franklin. Where does she train? Who's her coach? What program is she from? He didn't have the usual answers. He just said, she studies hard, and that was the truth. After the final round, Imani walked straight to Franklin and handed him her scorecard. She didn't smile, but her eyes sparkled in a way he hadn't seen before. I messed up move 22 in the 3rd game, she said. But he didn't catch it. Franklin chuckled. You still won. I know, but I won ugly. That made him laugh harder. That's better than losing pretty. That night, while the hall emptied and the sun dipped behind campus buildings, a woman approached Franklin with a firm handshake and an even firmer tone. Her name was Adrienne Holmes, director of a private prep academy in Massachusetts with a nationally ranked chess program. We'd like to offer her a spot, she said. Full scholarship, room and board, immediate enrollment if she qualifies. Franklin's face didn't change, but something in his chest shifted. She's only 11, Adrienne nodded. We've made exceptions before, and frankly, we'd be fools to let this one go. He nodded. You'd have to speak with her mother. I will, Adrienne said, but I wanted you to hear it first. I can tell you care about her. That matters. Franklin drove Imani and Denise back to their apartment the next morning. The car was quiet. Everyone was thinking. In the parking lot, before they stepped out, Franklin said softly, There's an offer. A real one. Full scholarship. Boarding school. It's a good school, Denise, top tier. She didn't answer right away. Imani stared at the back of the front seat. Would I have to live there? Yes, Franklin said, but they give holidays off and it's not too far. Imani didn't say anything. Inside, Denise sat on the edge of the couch, elbows on her knees. She rubbed her palms together like she was warming them, even though the heat was on. I'm proud of her, she said finally, and I want her to have everything, but I don't want to lose her to some world I won't understand. Imani's all I've got. Franklin knelt down next to her, not like a businessman, like a friend. She'll always be yours, but if she stays hidden here, the world won't ever know what she's capable of. You gave her this brilliance. Let it breathe. Denise looked over at her daughter. Do you want this, Imani? The girl sat still for a long time, then nodded slowly. I think I do, she said. I'm scared, but I want to try. The next 2 weeks were a blur of paperwork, interviews, placement tests, and packing. Imani passed every evaluation with flying colors. On the morning she left, she hugged her mom tight and whispered, You still get to tell me what to do, just over the phone now. Denise laughed and wiped her eyes. You better believe it. As the car pulled away, Franklin caught Imani looking out the window. Her fingers traced a square on the glass, just like a chessboard. She was already planning something, but while the offer gave Imani a path forward, what it revealed about Franklin would change his life in a way he never expected. 3 months later, Franklin Maddox sat alone in his sunroom again. Same chair, same chessboard, but everything felt different. The house was quieter than usual, not just silent, but still. He hadn't seen Imani since the day she left for school. She called a few times, mostly short updates. I beat my coach today. They moved me up to the high school section. I got an A in physics. But Franklin missed her presence, that calm focus, the way she tilted her head when she saw something others didn't, the way her fingers danced across a board like she was conducting music no one else could hear. That absence made space for something else, reflection. He looked around the room at the velvet curtains, the marble floors, the priceless artwork hanging from custom hooks. It all looked heavy now, like things built to insulate him from the world, instead of connect him to it. And yet, that little girl, that brilliant, blunt, sharp-eyed girl, had cut through it all with nothing but a plastic rook and some borrowed time. Later that week, he got a call. Franklin, this is Adrian Holmes, Imani's coach. He stood up from his desk. Is everything all right? More than all right. She just won her regional section. We're preparing to send her to nationals. He smiled wide. That's incredible. There's more. She's been writing an essay for a scholarship program. She had to talk about someone who changed her life. She chose you. He froze. She didn't tell me that, he said softly. Well, she submitted it today. You should read it. An hour later, he did. Excerpt from Imani Covington's essay. I used to think people like Mr. Maddox were untouchable. Big houses, big jobs, big walls. But when he invited me to play a game of chess, he didn't see a maid's daughter. He just saw a player, someone worth taking seriously, someone worth teaching. And that changed me. But the truth is, I think I changed him too. Franklin read that line 5 times, then again and again. He didn't cry, but something loosened inside him, something that had been wound tight for years. Success had come early in his life, money, fame, headline, but meaning, that had taken 11 years and a quiet girl with no spotlight. He started calling his lawyer the next morning, not to rewrite his will, but to start a foundation, not one named after him. That didn't feel right. It would be called the Covington Project, a scholarship fund for overlooked kids with exceptional minds. Not just for chess, for science, math, debate, robotics, any kid building brilliance in the shadows. He didn't tell Imani right away. He wanted her to keep chasing her goals without feeling like she owed him anything. But he did write her a letter. Dear Imani, you were right. You didn't need saving. You just needed someone to see you. And I thank you deeply for letting me be that person, even for a short time. You've already taught me more than I ever taught you. Keep playing boldly, not just in chess, in life. And if you ever forget how much potential you have, just remember, you beat me twice. Sincerely, Franklin. Imani would go on to compete nationally. She'd win some, lose some, but more importantly, she'd become the kind of person who opened doors for others, just like someone once did for her. And Franklin? He kept playing chess, not to win, but to remember, because the real game wasn't about kings and queens. It was about recognizing brilliance in unexpected places and knowing when to move aside and let it shine. There are kids like Imani in every city, every school, every neighborhood, not lacking talent, just opportunity. If you know one, help them, not with pity, with partnership. Sometimes the greatest thing you can do is pull out a chair, set up a board, and play the first move. You never know who's sitting across from you.